Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're jumping into this incredible story from the ancient world that has a really powerful lesson, about turning what looks like a disaster into an unexpected win. It's a pretty classic case of what happens when your message is so potent, it can't be stopped. It just gets redirected. It just sounds wrong, doesn't it? A retreat being a good thing? But we're going to look at this idea, this counterintuitive thought, that maybe, just maybe, facing intense opposition, we're talking being run out of town, can become the very engine that fuels your growth and pushes you into brand new places. All right, so let's set the scene. Our story kicks off in the ancient city of Iconium. We've got two missionaries, Paul and Barnabas, showing up. And look, they're not just wandering around aimlessly. No, they have a clear-cut strategy, a playbook they follow, and it always starts in a familiar place, the local synagogue. Yes, so this wasn't just some random trip. They were on a mission, a big one, and their strategy was really smart, right? You start in these cultural hubs like a synagogue, where the people you're talking to already get the basic framework, and then you branch out from there. Okay, so check this out. The moment they arrive in Iconium, it's explosive. They spoke so effectively that a great number of people, both Jews and non-Jewish Greeks, were immediately on board. I mean, this wasn't some slow burn. It was like, bam, an instant, powerful connection with a really diverse audience. But you can probably guess what happens next. That kind of massive success, it doesn't lead to a big citywide party. Oh no, far from it. The message was so powerful that it created this deep, immediate crack right down the middle of the city. And this just lays it out so clearly, doesn't it? You've got these two sides of the coin. On one hand, you have this incredible runaway success. And on the other, you have a group that not only refuses to believe, but goes out of their way to turn other people against them, to literally poison their minds. The message was just so potent that it forced everybody to pick a team. There was no middle ground anymore. No, I'm not sure. Suddenly, the entire community was officially split right in two. Now, this is where it gets really interesting to me. They're facing this growing hostility, a full-on smear campaign, and what do? They don't just pack up and run. Nope. They dig their heels in. They stay for a considerable time, speaking even more boldly and backing it all up with signs and wonders. But, a situation like that, it's a powder keg. It can't last forever. It was never going to stay just a war of words and bad feelings. It was bound to escalate. And escalated it did, into a direct, violent, and very organized threat against their lives. You can just see the chilling progression here. It starts with whispers, with poisoning minds. That boils over into this citywide division, and then that division hardens into an actual organized plot, involving leaders from both sides, with one single deadly goal: to publicly execute them by stoning. So, they're facing a credible, imminent threat to their lives. They have to make a choice. And right here, this is the pivot point for the whole story. This is where a moment of extreme danger gets turned on its head and becomes the very catalyst for growth. They find out about the plot, and they get out of there, and let's be clear, this was not an act of cowardice. It was pure strategic wisdom. Their own teachings said that if you're facing deadly persecution, you get out. You preserve your life so you can continue the work. They were quite literally living to fight another day. And here it is. This is the crucial part. The story doesn't end with them running and hiding. The very next sentence tells us they just kept going, doing the exact same thing in these new cities. The plot that was designed to silence them for good completely failed. In fact, it just amplified their message to new places. And I mean, the result is just undeniable. Look at this. The opposition that was meant to crush their one mission in one city, Iconium, ended up being the direct cause of its expansion into 3 entirely new areas: Lystra, Derbe, and the whole region around them. The very act designed to stop them became the rocket fuel for their growth. So this whole sequence of events, the proclamation, the opposition, the escape, the expansion, this wasn't some lucky accident. What we're seeing here is actually a recurring pattern. It's a 4-step blueprint for how growth can happen not just in spite of hardship, but actually because of it. So here's the key takeaway from this whole thing. It's this cycle of resilience. You start with a bold proclamation. That boldness, well, it inevitably leads to a backlash. But when that backlash gets life-threatening, a strategic retreat isn't the end of the story. No, it's the beginning of the next chapter. Mission expansion. This story from Iconium, it's more than just a history lesson. It's a powerful and timeless model for resilience, and it really challenges us to look at the obstacles in our own lives differently, doesn't it? It makes you wonder, what if that thing that looks like a crushing defeat is actually the pivot point, the very catalyst you need for your next and maybe even your greatest step forward?